Hey there, YouTube. Veganomix here. So, tonight I'm having the pleasure of being on Free Domain Radio's call-in show with Stefan Molyneux. Basically, my question to him is, should the non-aggression principle apply to animals, or does it? And I actually think it does. Should the non-aggression principle apply to animals? So, I'm going to start out by going over a simple definition. Let's agree that the non-aggression principle is the non-initiation of the use of force. If you initiate the use of force, that would be infringing upon the non-aggression principle. So then I'm going to just kind of segue into knowing that it is possible to live an even healthier lifestyle, or a healthier life on a plant-based diet, and knowing that it would benefit the earth and humanity to do so. Can we morally continue to slaughter animals against their will just to satiate our palates? So anyone who has ever watched a slaughterhouse video can clearly understand that animals can struggle, suffer, bleed, cry out, and writhe in pain on the ground as they're slaughtered. So they're sentient beings. They feel pain, they feel joy. So this is clearly an act of violence and aggression on the part of the parties involved, the slaughterhouse workers in this instance. The fact that a cow or pig or dog or fish cannot vocally tell you with a human-invented language not to murder them does not make it ethical to do so against their will. We can infer that the cow does not wish to die due to their response to pain, right? So, how would you feel if from the moment you were born, someone had already chosen the day of your execution? That's a very lasting question. Very, very good question. So I'm going to go into speciesism because I believe Stefan is a speciesist. He's very, humans are the best. Like, we're the most intelligent species. Therefore we should be able to do these things, I think. So I'm just going to define it real quick. In philosophy, discrimination is based on judging others not for who they are, but for what they are not. The lives and experiences of non-human animals are usually considered less important than those of human beings simply because they are not like humans. Yet, non-human animals have emotional lives and feel pain, pleasure, fear, and joy. Devaluing their lives simply because they don't have some characteristics that most humans have is discrimination. Every characteristic and circumstance that is used to discriminate against non-human animals, such as lack of rationality, language ability, social connections, also applies to some humans. Yet we don't use those things to measure the worth of humans, right? Adult humans who can reason, infants, the cognitively disabled, and orphans are all considered equally valuable, right? The reason we try not to harm other humans is because they can feel and suffer, much like animals, other animals, non-human animals. The most common manifestation of speciesist discrimination is moral anthropocentrism, which is the devaluation of the interests of those who don't belong to the human species. But speciesism includes favoring some non-human species over others. For example, usually greater moral consideration is given to dogs than pigs, simply because dogs belong to a certain species and pigs do not. This is speciesism. Moral philosophy considers the morality of actions and looks at speciesism in terms of whether or not speciesist actions, discrimination, are justified. The determination that speciesism is unjustified would be true whether there were prejudice involved or not. The definitions used by philosophers are most often based on Richard Ryder's view of speciesism, which is usually narrowly interpreted to include only discrimination based on species membership alone. Moral philosopher Oscar Horta defends the following broader definition, which includes any discrimination against non-human animals, whether discrimination is based on species membership or not. Right? Here's something else I want to mention. Speciesism is a superstition that is arbitrary, random, and cannot be universalized. Abandoning speciesism is to stop using arbitrary and superstitious standards as to what force you use against other animal species that are capable of suffering. Killing, imprisoning, and torturing other animal species for your own sustenance is probably where most humans would need to start off, since it is the norm in global society to jail and kill other animal species. Eat a plant-based diet, go for products that don't rely on speciesism to be seen as morally good, and talk to your friends about the immorality of using force against another animal species for human pleasure. If a group of beings from another planet, I like this is good. If a group of beings from another planet were to land on Earth, beings who consider themselves as superior to you and I, as you feel yourself to be. Hold on. Beings who consider themselves as superior to you as you feel yourself to be to other animals, right? Would you concede them the rights over you that you assume over other animals? George Bernard Shaw said that. So a friend of mine has said to speak about the speciesist definition of intelligence. So I would address the very he says this, I would address the very speciesist nature of the definition of the word. Intelligence has been defined in many different ways, such as in terms of one's capacity for logic, abstract thought, understanding, self-awareness, communication, learning, emotional knowledge, memory, planning, creativity, and problem solving. It can also be more generally described as the ability to perceive and or retain knowledge or information and apply it to itself or other instances of knowledge, or information creating referable understanding models of any size, density, or complexity due to any conscious or subconscious imposed will or instruction to do so. This definition is flawed in that it doesn't recognize that you can have intelligence in the realm of your senses, hearing, or in survivability, in the realm of sense of smell, being intelligent in the practical realm when dealing with survival problems. Okay, these are all right. Sorry about that. I had to free up some space. So, as he says, as my friend says, this definition doesn't recognize that you can have intelligence in the realm of hearing or in the realm of scent and smell, scent of smell, or being intelligent in the practical realm of survival when dealing with survival problems. So humans these days are mostly really low in intelligence when it comes to these, obviously, because we're not worried about surviving. You know what I mean? We have this social structure in place that says that killing is immoral, and we have a legal system that deals with that. So if you kill someone, you know what I mean, you go to jail for a long time, and so humans don't really have to necessarily worry about survivability other than accidents and maybe an animal attack. But so because so much of what is called upon as intelligence we don't see present in most of the humans nowadays, if you're being empirical. So another thing I wanted to mention is I believe Stefan is actually a vegetarian, and I didn't know this before I wanted to actually kind of debate him or talk to him about this. So I just have something real quick. If he gives me time, I can just read this to him. So being vegetarian versus vegan. Being vegetarian, you've taken a step in the right direction, but the dairy industry is just about as cruel, if not more cruel, as the meat industry. You're supporting the veal industry, the egg industry that grinds up millions of baby male chicks that won't obviously lay eggs, and the raping of cows. Human bodies are not designed for cow's milk, to consume cow's milk. Baby cows are supposed to have that, Baby cows are taken from their mothers and sold for veal meat, so veal. Now, I'm sure you've seen slaughterhouse videos, but could you imagine having your daughter taken away and killed so that another species could eat her? Now, I'm probably not going to present this as it's kind of a personal thing, and I think he would take it really negatively. But I don't see why it's not a Valid argument. Surely, if your daughter took a knife and started cutting animals, like the neck of an animal, as a child, we would immediately tell her to stop, and we would think it very strange of her to be doing this. But as adults, it's just fine and dandy. It's just another day, you know. Actually, you get paid to do this as an adult, because, and probably paid pretty well, because there are not a lot of people that would do this. So humanity's main focus should always be extending compassion to others, not engaging in rituals and traditions that are based on cruelty. So, taking the speciesistic view, human beings are supposedly the most intelligent species on this planet, right? So if we're the most intelligent species, shouldn't we have the biggest moral compass? We're the biggest moral agents, right, on this planet. So shouldn't we be the ones setting the bar for everyone else? Shouldn't we be the ones? I like that quote. If aliens were to come to this planet, how would they view us treating other animals? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, so I had some other things I wanted to mention. You know, maybe talk about Ishmael, takers versus leavers, and how humans are basically the only ones that are takers. Whereas, we take 2 months of food and we store it, something like that. No other animal really does that. I mean, for hibernation purposes, obviously, but you don't see a lion going and killing 5 gazelles, probably because he couldn't, but you don't see a lion going and getting 5 gazelles and then holding one, no, because they don't have refrigeration, they can't store food, things like that. So, but also just because they think in the now, I'm only hungry. I'm hungry now, I can worry about food later again. So, arguments for going vegan. For the Earth/world hunger, a staggering 51% or more of global greenhouse gas emissions are caused by animal agriculture, according to a report published by the World Watch Institute. So I know that Stefan Molyneux is a climate change skeptic. Okay? So I don't really know how this is going to go over with him. Additionally, a recent United Nations report concluded that a global shift towards a vegan diet is extremely important in order to combat the worst effects of global climate change. Producing 1 calorie of animal protein requires 11 times as much fossil fuel input, releasing 11 times as much carbon dioxide as does producing a calorie from plant protein. And so I think that he would argue that, well, we don't really know that pushing more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere is causing harm. I think he would come back with that, which I'm not a scientist. I don't know. I can only take what 99% of climatologists are agreeing that climate change is man-made. So, I don't have the luxury of being a scientist. So, according to the University of Chicago, being vegan is more effective in the fight against global warming than trading in your car for a hybrid. 1.5 tons fewer carbon dioxide going vegan from typical meat eaters, whereas only you have 1 ton of fewer carbon dioxide being released in the atmosphere going from average car to hybrid. So the billions of chickens, turkeys, pigs, and cows who are crammed into factory farms each year in the U.S. produce enormous amounts of methane, produced both during digestion and from the acres of cesspools filled with feces that they excrete. Scientists report that every pound of methane is more than 84 times as effective as carbon dioxide is at trapping heat in our atmosphere. The EPA shows that animal agriculture is the single largest source of methane emissions in the U.S. Nitrous oxide is about 300 times more potent as a global warming gas than carbon dioxide. According to the UN, the meat, egg, and dairy industries account for a staggering 65% of worldwide nitrous oxide emissions. World hunger. Using an acre to raise cattle for slaughter gives people only about 20 pounds of meat. That same amount of land could grow 365 pounds of soybeans. 17 times more people could be saved from starvation. The average American receives 27% of their calories from animal products. If everyone on Earth ate this way, 3.2 billion people would have enough to eat, and 3.7 billion people would starve. Okay, I really wanted to go into the China study, but I just feel like I might not be able to. So basically, the China study is the largest diet nutrition study ever conducted by Dr. T. Colin Campbell. Had over 60,000 participants. There were 3 people to go on and direct and administer the project, T. Colin Campbell being one. I'm not really going to go into that right now. So, if I can talk about this, I would. Sugar, glucose is the body's preferred energy source. Fructose is actually the body's preferred energy source. But, it gets broken down as glycogen. We use that as energy. So I wanted to talk again about propaganda spread through TV advertisements and our school systems. Talk about humane slaughter and how there's no such thing as an animal as a protein deficiency. Let's see what else. There are three reasons people initially choose to go vegan. For your health, for the health of the animals, and the environment. So, I was going to talk about how veganism will be necessary for the future of our planet. Speciesism, obviously, I talked about. Why should humans be concerned with non-humans? So if we are in an extinction event, wouldn't it be morally excellent to slow down the rate at which thousands of species are going extinct? How about the argument that without bees we're fucked? Let's see. So Stefan's daughter doesn't really want to eat animals if she can recognize them as having lived. That's what one of my friends was saying, something about that. That's why she doesn't eat meat. Animals don't have a sense of self-ownership. We can prove that animals have compassion. Bonobo monkeys are closely related to humans, and they will avoid the suffering of their own kind. They will avoid inflicting pain on others, right? We can understand in nature there is no compassion between species. Nature is brutal. Whole food, plant-based, high-carb, low-fat, vegan. Speciesism is a... So I was reading, or actually I was listening to UPB, Universally Preferable Behavior by Stefan Molyneux, yesterday. And he says, there are these little truths, middle truths, and great truths. So a little truth could be, don't punch, don't punch. You could teach your kid not to punch. The great truth would be, violence is wrong. And you can conclude that murder is wrong from that. So why doesn't that extend to other sentient beings? I mean, we were talking again about speciesism. So then also this idea that intelligence is irrelevant for someone's right to live. Now, I've been told that Stefan would go on a rant about this, saying, well, you don't have a right to live, you have to earn your right. Okay, so I don't know about that. So in the absence of ethical norms, stealing energy and stealing energy and resources from other creatures is perfectly sensible, of course. In nature, animals eat each other, right? One thing that makes rational beings capable of moral agency is that they can't even read my own writing. They can act from principle rather than desire or impulse. There's an argument that states that moral agency does not require acting from principle. There are arguments that state that moral agency need not require linguistic ability or human levels of rationality, and that any reason for concluding that animals cannot be moral agents will apply equally to humans, right? We've kind of talked about that. I take the position that, generally speaking, a being acts as a moral agent when, but not only when, it respects the interests of some others as well as, or to some degree, in preference to its own. So we accept the golden rule because the acts it endorses or condemns appear to be good or evil. So I would argue that slaughtering and enslaving and killing animals is a moral evil because we don't need to do it for survival, right? Let's see. So another thing is animals often have expectations of one another or of human beings, right? So if animals have expectations, that shows a higher level of consciousness, a higher level of intelligence. Animals have and do take part in reciprocity covenants among their own kind and with humans. It is anthropocentric and narrowly formalistic to assume that such arrangements can only be entered into linguistically, right? The question is not whether or not they have such a conceptual apparatus, but rather whether they do respect the interests of other members of their moral community, right? So an example could be a wolf. A wolf need not be able to formulate the utility rules of its pack so long as it knows and acts in accordance with them, right? Alright, thanks for watching. Those are pretty much, I know that might have been like really out of whack and like throwing things all over the place, but that was basically, those were my notes for what I'm going to take to the show tonight and talk about. So, if you think I'm leaving anything out, please let me know because I'll have time to review it. And thanks for watching. May your dates always be dank, may your bananas always be ripe, and peace.